In all of European football, Serie A is the only league that can brag that in the past 4 seasons, it has had 4 different winners. The league also sees a lot of changes in its team of the year. This is Serie A's official 11 for the season. And I'll be honest guys, Martino, Dom and I, we didn't really agree with some of these selections. So I had them put together their Serie A team of the year. So who's going to be on the left wing, Year Leão or Kvaratskhelia? And check out how the right wing gets both Martino and Dom completely stumped. Why don't you kick it off, Martino? Tell me who your goalkeeper for the season would be.
Yeah, Provedel. I think it was close between him and Meret. I think the funniest thing is like Magnan's easily it again if he just played the amount of games, but you can't miss the amount of time he did. But Provedel was just integral to Lazio finishing where they finished the season.
All right, so I really wanted to reward players that I feel had an impact that was maybe unexpected. So for me, for example, Provedel in goal for Lazio, huge surprise. I mean, he didn't even start as a starter at the start of the season, only started playing because their other goalkeeper got injured. And when he came on, he just made that role his, and Lazio finished with the second best defense in the league. And I don't think anybody expected that.
Let me guess, the right back is from your team.
Of course, it's our captain, Giovanni Di Lorenzo. This season, stepped it up, both off the pitch and on the pitch as a leader. But he has also stepped it up in terms of his performances.
It's really not a strong position in this league. It hasn't been for a little while. And it's not a knock on Di Lorenzo. I think he's just the best of the bunch. He's been consistent. He captained the team that won the Scudetto by a bunch of points.
Now your center back. So give me your first center back.
Yeah, so I think it's Kim, easily. Defender of the year in the league. The second that he entered the league, he was just fantastic. Just completely filled the shoes of Koulibaly, which almost everybody thought was going to be impossible.
It has to be Kim Min-jae. Again, I want to reward the players that had maybe an unexpected impact on the club, and you can say that about Kim trying to replace Koulibaly. I thought he had a much better season than any of Koulibaly's seasons.
Now with Kim Min-jae, it's his debut season, wins the Serie A title. But do you think it's also going to be his final season for the timing at at Napoli? Do you think he's headed out the door?
I think so. I think the amount of money that clubs are willing to spend on Kim as a center back is huge. It's something that Napoli has to accept.
I think you got to go Casale with Lazio. I mean, they were so stout defensively. All these other top teams in Serie A didn't have a singular great center back this season, I thought.
This is the position where I was most struggling with. At one point, I was about to put Umtiti of Lecce in there, just because I feel like if they stayed up, it's thanks to him. So I went with Acerbi, who I thought he did an incredible job replacing Skriniar and De Vrij. I don't think people predicted that he would put Haaland in his pocket in the Champions League final. I think he's, at his age, at 35 years old, he's, peaking. So left back was also quite difficult because you've got 3 very strong choices. Mauro Rui, for example. Obviously, you've got Theo Hernandez. But I feel like Di Marco, when I saw him play against Napoli for Inter, really impressed me. I think he's the one that has improved the most. I feel like, for example, Theo, even though he's the better player, has not had a better season than Di Marco and has definitely, I think, not improved compared to last season.
Unfortunately, not Theo. I think this year, subpar for him for his standards. And the guy, he just plays way too much. There's no alternating. Like, Gosens is coming off the bench for Inter to go in for Di Marco, who I have, unfortunately. But there was no doubt the amount of service that he provides from the left side, in swinging crosses. Just also his set pieces are phenomenal. He's a good athlete as well. I think it was more than deserving this year.
So kick it off with your first midfielder.
Now I'm just going to go with him and his Lobotka. Serie A, throughout the entire season, he was phenomenal. Him and Anguissa were a formidable duo, but just what Lobotka brought for them, he was just the cog in that machine. It's the greatest ever Napoli team in terms of like points accumulated. How is he not nominated? I never understood that.
Yes, he's got the highest pass accuracy in Serie A. Doesn't misplace a single one. Incredible ball carrying ability. He is the guy that enables Napoli to play the way that they play. Without Lobotka, Osimhen and Kvara don't shine. Partnering up with Lobotka, I wanted to put someone that could bring the goals from the midfield and the assists. So that's why I went with Milinkovic-Savic.
Honestly, been the best Serie A midfielder in the past 5 years, maybe. Milinkovic-Savic, I mean, just incredible for Lazio. No Immobile to carry them this season. I thought it was just a great overall team, but he was their best player. He always manages to score. Free kicks, he's fantastic on. He's great on corners.
There's a lot of really good midfielders out there. You've got Tonali, you've got Zielinski, also has a lot of assists. But at the end of the day, I went for Barella. I really think he's the heart of Inter. Really like the way that he plays, the way that he knows how to defend, he knows how to go forward. I really think he's a complete midfielder.
I think Barella was just incredible again. I mean, offensively, the work rate. The only thing that is worrying about him long term is that he might burn out from the amount of minutes that he has and how often he plays and the way Inter's fixtures were when they were going deep essentially in every competition and having to compete for top four. He's technically one of the most gifted midfielders in Europe. I don't even think it's a discussion at this point.
He was technically considered the best midfielder as well, team of the season as well. There's now rumors of him moving to Newcastle or some 50 million deal happening. I do the rumor reel on my channel. I think I know where I sit, but I want you to tell me where you sit on this.
Yeah, so I essentially just made a video about it saying that the reports were just contradictory. When the initial report says that Newcastle are closing in on a player, everyone knows the phrase closing in means they're about to sign him. But then the initial tweet to follow up said that there's significant interest. And my example and analogy was there's a difference between closing in on dating Selena Gomez and me being interested in Selena Gomez. Sure, I'm interested in Selena Gomez, but I'm not close to closing in on her. And that's essentially what the whole thing is. And let's face it, childhood Interista, playing for the club. They just made it to a Champions League final. They would sell Hakan and Brozovic, both of them, before they would sell him. And the news came out almost immediately afterwards from Di Marzio saying, with all due respect to the Telegraph, there's no chance that this happens. Well, the front three, I'm taking a little bit out of Frank Crivello of Serie Sit Down's notebook here, just because I don't think there was anyone particularly dominant on the right wing. I think Lookman would have gotten there if he wasn't so inconsistent. He was a very half and half type season. I thought he was phenomenal for Atalanta, but I couldn't put him in there. I do have Victor up top, though. Victor Osimhen, I thought, should have been player of the season MVP. I understand Kvara getting it, but Victor, I mean, this guy does everything.
The top goal scorer of the league, Victor Osimhen, first guy to be top scorer and win the league since 2009. He's been incredible this season. Not just the amount of goals, but the variety of goals. He scored goals from impossible angles, goals on the volley, goals with headers. And he does it in important games, which is something that he hadn't done in previous seasons. So I think he's really stepped it up, and he's been one of the leaders also in terms of presence and leadership for the team. So on the left, there were a few options. I think it boiled down to Leão and Kvara. Now, Leão misses out for a similar reason to Theo Hernandez. I feel like last year was a better year for Leão. So I just don't feel like Milan players did enough to really, go above what Kvara did, which was he propelled Napoli to a title. And Kvara, what he has is that he comes in per season from playing in Georgia. Nobody knows about him. And again, I really want to reward players that had an impact. Players that you think maybe this team wouldn't be in that position in the league without him. Now, I don't know if Napoli would have won the Scudetto without Kvara.
I do have Kvara. It's hard for me not to put him. I thought he really struggled towards the back half of the season. Obviously struggling with no goals or assists. But even then, we say it all the time when people get on Rafael Leão for not scoring or assisting. Well, look who his partner is on, firstly. And then secondly, it's what you're doing if you're not scoring and assisting. He's constantly getting past players, drawing fouls, putting his team in a better position to score. I thought he was obviously one of the most incredible new talents to Serie A that we've seen in a very long time, and it's hard not to put the actual MVP in this 11.
So who then, in that case, who would be player number 11 for you?
I know he's not on the right, but it's Rafa. I mean, how is he not? They don't even come close to finishing top 4 with this. They made top 4 because of the Juve situation. 15 goals, 8 assists. I mean, like, look at what he's doing. He has no legitimate help. Like, all these other guys up top, Giroud, maybe certain instances could start for other teams at the top of this league. But if you really break it down, a lot of the other starters up front with Rafa would not start for the other top teams in Serie A. I thought he was phenomenal, and honestly, it was hard to leave him out, but it was also hard to leave out Kvara. So, I mean, if you got a bone to pick about who's on the right or left, sue me, I guess.
So I put Dybala, which is maybe a little bit out of position. Maybe Dybala, likes to be a bit more central behind the strikers, but I think he can do a very good job on the right as well.
Keep in mind, Martino went with Rafael Leão on the right, so.
Yeah, I was thinking actually of, okay, if I don't put Leão on the left, could he play on the right? But then again, I thought about the impact that players have, but you have to think that Milan's starting position was first last season. And based on just pure points without penalties and all that, they wouldn't have qualified. Now, Roma was starting 5th. So, but what Dybala did was actually, it gave them hope that they could get into the Champions League. If Roma did anything up front, it was thanks to Dybala.
Now, did you have a 12th man pick?
Unfortunately, I do, and it's got to be with Inter. Lautaro Martinez was just insane this year. No, they were in danger, Inter. They weren't drawing games. They were either losing games or winning games, and he was a big part of that. And I know there was a lot of other great, talented players around him, but he was overall the most consistent. He's scoring over 20 goals. Like, you got to give it to him at that point.
So the 12th man, I was debating. Yeah, again, Leão was in there. But then ultimately I thought, let me put this in the perspective of if I'm a coach. If I'm drawing a game or if I'm losing a game and I need to switch things up, who's that player that can give me a bit of variety? So who's a player that I can maybe change the formation with if I have him on the team? So for example, if I bring in Leão, he's just going to be a direct swap with Kvara. I can't really change too much. But if I bring in Tonali, which is the guy that I picked, maybe I can play a 4-2-3-1. Great going forward, great defensively, good passer of the ball.
With the coach, if I had to see him right, you would go with Spalletti?
Luciano Spalletti, for sure. For sure. I mean, he did an incredible job. To think that so many of our top guys left, it's not even the fact that he played amazing football, which he did. I mean, congrats to him. That's great. But how he's managed to do that with a new set of players, that's what really strikes me.
Yeah, I mean, there's no other choice. First of all, winning a Scudetto with Napoli is very difficult. And secondly, to do it as a manager that has never done it before and constantly gets hatred and vitriol for not winning, even though I don't know what teams he was supposed to win the Scudetto with. If we're going back and looking on history, was he supposed to beat the great Inter sides that won the treble? Was he supposed to beat Juve at the time? Was he supposed to even win it with those Inter sides in recent years? No, but he comes in and wins with a team that had a lot of turnover and nobody expected to win. It's one of the bigger upsets that we've seen, and they did it in dominating fashion, and he rides off into the sunset because he's leaving Napoli now. So I think Spalletti definitely manager of the year.
Well, there you have it, guys. That's their team of the year. Make sure you guys put in your team in the comments section. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit the bell notification so you can watch these videos as soon as I upload them. And even in a Serie A video, doesn't matter. Forza Milan, grazie mille e ciao tutti.